Halifax Thunderbirds, Halifax Mooseheads. We'll talk about it all here on Halifax Sports Talk. It is Thursday, February 5th. Man, time flies by really fast here, Dane. We got two teams to break down, and we're going to have Jeremy on, as always, to talk about this Thunderbirds team. Good, the bad, the ugly, and a coach firing taking place here today, about an hour or two before the show. So lots to get into, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Yeah, I was sitting at the desk at Pat's this morning. Got a text come through from Andrew, and I was like, oh, shoot, I forgot to text him. But no, it was you telling me about a firing. And I was like, okay, well, here we go. We got some more content for today. Maybe they're helping us out because, there hasn't been too much to talk to on the offensive side of things for Halifax. But we'll get into all of that when Jeremy joins us in just a second, because we were just talking before the show, and he does think it's not time to panic, but some people think it might be time to panic. Who knows?
We'll see. And I think, we keep on talking about how the city has really embraced this team. And, it's the good and the bad when a city embraces a team, because when the city loves you, they have a very, short, I guess we'll say leash with how long it takes for them to kind of be upset with their hometown team. So we'll see what happens with that. Just an update for the podcast. I think we'll tell people that the Halifax Forum stuff is really taking off. The city seems really passionate about it. We actually might be having a guest on soon to talk about it, and we're going to try and do our best detective work to figure out what's going on and what the deal is with that. So, we're all Scotia boys, we're all Maritimers, and it's kind of cool to see the city and everybody just rallying around something. And it really does seem like people are rallying around the Halifax Forum. So we'll try and keep you guys up to date with that. But hey, these podcasts are a lot more fun to do when the teams are winning. So we'll try and do whatever we can. But hey, let's not waste any time. Let's bring Jeremy in. And, Jeremy, I kind of talked about the clutch factor was the big thing this team is missing. Do you feel like it makes it that much harder for us to analyze this team for the fact that they've been in a lot of the games they're losing?
Yeah, I mean, because I think if you just look on paper, you go, okay, they're on this losing skid. They've got one win out of the last, whatever it is, 5 or so games. Things don't look great when you look at it on paper, but you watch that game, or you watch even, the condensed game, the extended highlights on NLL Plus. And one thing is clear is that the Thunderbirds are a good team, and they've got great stuff going both sides of the ball, especially in the net. I think maybe Warren Hill might be the best goalie in the whole league. So, to come away with another loss, especially at home, Halifax fans, like you mentioned, they really embrace the team. They deserve a win. They got a good show, at least. Georgia's a very tough team. They were held to only, 11 goals. And that score 11-7 looks like maybe a little bit lopsided, but it wasn't at all. That was a back and forth game the whole way. Right at the half, I think they were only down by a goal, and getting into the third quarter, there was barely anything. I think there was only a couple seconds left when Georgia scored one to make it a 2-goal game. That's anybody's game going into the fourth quarter. It just didn't land the way Halifax fans and the team would have liked for it to. So, people might look at the 3-5 after, starting the season 2-0 and think, oh, things have really gone off the rails. But I'm not so sure that they have here for the Thunderbirds. I think the Thunderbirds are a really good team. They're getting some unlucky bounces, and they're in it with a lot of these teams, and like I said, they had a really tough schedule up until and including the next game against the defending champs, the Buffalo Bandits. Not that everything just, is going to be a cakewalk after that, but it's been a really tough go for the last little bit. And at least in terms of their play, the Thunderbirds have looked good. They just haven't translated those into wins, unfortunately.
Couple things you said there, Jeremy, that I definitely do agree on. One, the Georgia offense that has kind of been firing on all cylinders. Like you said, when you went to go see them in Calgary, they put up, or was it Edmonton?
They played Calgary in Edmonton, yeah.
Yes, okay. You went to Edmonton to see them play the Roughnecks, but they put up 19 goals. And that's something that we talked about. We thought that maybe this offense was going to be kind of hot coming into this one. And obviously holding them to 11. Shout out to Warren Hill, like you just said, mentioning him. He might be one of the best in the league. One thing that I also want to touch on is you said they deserve a win. The fans here, they deserve a win at home because they rally around this team so much. The next game is at home against the Buffalo Bandits. Just happens to fall on Valentine's Day. There's going to be a lot of new fans, a lot of people going on a first date in the city of Halifax. How more deserving can you be than maybe a great night out in Halifax? We'll see how everything turns out. But my question for you, Jeremy, is what do you think the Thunderbirds have to do to get a second straight win this season against Buffalo? They already have their number. They're a couple, or I think they're actually one spot behind Buffalo in the standings. How crucial would this game be to kind of get a second win here?
Well, I think it's worth it for everybody to ask their Valentine. My gift this year would be a Thunderbirds win. Would be great, right? That's what I'm asking for, and I'm really hoping that it happens. They had that overtime win against Buffalo when they went up 2-0 on the season, and things were looking really good. So we know that they can play with these guys, with what is one of the best teams the NLL has ever seen, because they're multiple time champions. They're defending champions, but they have dropped a little bit in the standings. They're not looking quite that, like the world beaters that they used to be. And they actually just dropped a big one here. I think they were playing Colorado, who is looking amazing lately. And they netted 20 against Buffalo. So when you think about it, we're just talking about the exceptional play of Warren Hill recently. And I mean, Brent Dobson of Georgia, he played great as well. It was really the Dobson Hill show, if you ask me, that game. There were some beautiful goals in the last game, and there were some really nice chances as well that didn't quite turn into goals. But those two goalies played exceptional. So Warren Hill, one of the best in the league for sure. If Buffalo is not really able to play that kind of a defensive game, because we know offensively they're still really good. They've got two of the top goal scorers in the league, just like they always do. So they're going to be able to score, but with a guy like Warren Hill limiting how much offensive firepower they have, and the fact that they probably don't have nearly the level of goaltending that Halifax does, I think as long as Halifax is really is sticking to their game plan, they're doing that fast breaking offense, getting the ball to guys like Peterson and Stotts and Jameson setting up plays the way he has been. I think there's a really good chance that we see another pretty back and forth kind of game like we saw against Georgia, but one that Halifax has a very good chance of coming out on top of, just like they did against Georgia. Just, things in the fourth didn't quite go their way. But a couple of bounces here and there, and that very well could have been a tie game that goes to overtime. Maybe even Halifax pulls away before that. So I see this game here, especially with another week, break, to give the guys a little bit more rest time, and a little bit more time to gel, because there's some changes going on, amongst the team, right? We've talked at length about Theed making his exit, guys like Will McLeod moving up. Jason Knox really came on in this last game as well. So if we're going to see kind of a revamped version of the Thunderbirds, the more time they have to develop, the better. Having this week off, I think, is a really good one. So yeah, they got to limit those guys like Byrne and Dane Smith that are so good, so effective on the offense for Buffalo. Provided Warren Hill plays the game that he can, I think Halifax has every bit as good of a chance to beat the defending champs as anybody does.
It feels so weird right now because, like you said, this team is capable of so much. Like, we know what this team is capable of, which is what I think sometimes can be the most difficult thing. I talk about it a lot with the NHL, where there's certain teams that they're not going to be a bottom 5 lottery team, but they might not make the playoffs. So you kind of are stuck in that no man's land, as we like to say. And now I'm not saying the Thunderbirds are that team right now, but I can appreciate your optimism, Jeremy, with this team right now, saying, hey, look, it's not like they're getting blown out of the water every single night. And, looking at some of the numbers I've seen, it's, again, a lot of people only care about the W's. But when you look at it, there's still been stuff that we can overly be proud of for adjustments. Like, I understand, like, sports like in the NBA, the NHL, MLB, you play every night. For a sport like this, that you're not playing every day and practice times, it's more about tactics and things. how much do you want to change and how much do you risk not changing because you don't want to mess with too much? And then I got to go back to you with, of course, the latest announcement here, getting rid of an offensive coordinator, getting rid of a coach. Is that one of those wake up calls where you kind of just say, hey, look, we can't fire all you guys, so we had to get rid of somebody on the coaching staff to wake you up a little bit?
Well, there's a lot there for sure, right? And I think the easy take would be for someone to say, oh, well, they've lost, this many games after starting off pretty good. They're obviously not a good team. And I really don't think that's at all accurate. As we discussed, I mean, yeah, you come away with a win or you come away with a loss, but that doesn't tell the whole story of the game. And these are games that largely they've been, competitive in against all of the best teams in the league, pretty much, right? Georgia is coming on. They played Colorado, and Colorado is just taking off. And look at how good they are. Like I mentioned, they just put in 20 against the defending champs and beat them, 20-9 or something like that. Like it wasn't even close. Like it was 20-18 or something. So Halifax has had to take on some really tough teams. And despite that, they're still making some refinements, some tweaks to the team that they obviously think are going to benefit them. And one being moving Feed. Unfortunately, nobody wanted to see him go. He's a great player. But if that helps them with maybe some moves they might still have, up their sleeve here before the end of the year, maybe it is just to get those draft picks for later. Another one, like you mentioned, Stu Moncher making his exit as of today, I believe it is. Maybe they've got plans to change the offense in some way, or it's pretty hard without being in that locker room to know why they might want to make that change, and whether that's something that they saw coming for a while, or if it's sort of like a snap decision. But again, they are making tweaks to this team. They're not just sitting back like some teams and saying, this is going to work out eventually. Or you see sometimes where there's a head coach or even a star player that stays, part of the organization maybe a little bit longer past their prime than they should have, right? I don't see any of that sort of thing. I see a team that is conscious about maybe what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and really trying to move the pieces around to make it so that they have the best team and the best result for the fan base, right? So, it remains to be seen where things are going to go. We see some guys stepping up. Like I mentioned, Jason Knox had an incredible game, just recently here against Georgia. Will McLeod is still, the youngest guy on the team, still very new to the team, and has shown that he is capable of some great things. And now maybe, they've got plans at the offensive coordinator role where they're going to bring somebody in who they think is going to really revamp things. So, I'm on board for what they're doing. I'm behind them, and I'm definitely willing to stick with this and see what it is that the rest of the season and going forward, the longer range forecast for these guys, what that has in store.
Well, Jeremy, last weekend, I think you gave us the closest score prediction we might have ever had in the history of this show. And I know we won't get one this weekend because it's obviously a bye week. We'll get back to it next weekend, like I said, on Valentine's Day. But did you think you were going to be that close in your score prediction? I think you were only off. It was 11-7. I think you might have said like 11-8 or 12-8 or something.
I mean, I don't even remember what my prediction was, but going into it, I always kind of think like, are they an offensive team? Are they a defensive team? That's about all the thought process I put into it. And then maybe I tweak it a little bit if I think that, some black magic might turn the tables for us. So I just thought it was going to be a high scoring game, a little bit higher scoring than what we saw. I would have been, I guess is what I was expecting. I didn't really see, Dobson and Hill playing quite as well as they did. And I mean, that's no knock against them. I know, especially that Warren Hill can be just lights out. We've seen it this year. We've seen it in previous years. But those guys really just did what they could do to keep that score down, right? And we only saw, 11-7, right? Like that's not a super high scoring. It's not a low scoring lacrosse game, but it's not a really high scoring one. So I was a little bit surprised on that. In terms of our game here, we've got a bye week. I'm heading off on vacation here pretty soon, so I don't think I'll be able to talk before the Buffalo game, just in the days leading up to it. So I'll give you a prediction for today. I see it being pretty similar to what we saw here with Georgia, where it was 11-7. I think Halifax is going to come out on top. I think they're going to be able to get at least 12. And I see Buffalo struggling a little bit because, like we said, they aren't really looking quite like the amazing team that they have in the past. Hopefully this doesn't come back to bite us. So I'm going to go with a 12-9 final for our Halifax Thunderbirds at the Nest.
There we go. I like it. You said about a reverse jinx and a reverse curse, but then you did call like pretty much the exact score of last week's game. So I think I speak for all of Halifax. We needed you to pick them this time around. We needed you to come back on with them. So it's very, very interesting to look at because this team, that's far from over. It's kind of a tough skid, but Jeremy, one thing I'll say, and we hope you have a great vacation. I'll be very jealous of you getting some sun. But one thing we've been saying is like, hey, look, typically you prefer a team to start off poor and then get better, not the other way around, but it is a season of roller coasters, right? So it's kind of about how you can deal with a little bit of adversity. But it kind of feels like we were a little bit tricked from the start of the year. The first 3 games, we're like, wow, they're going to breeze through everything, right? So I think that's what's probably been the toughest on fans.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our hopes were so high after that 2-0 start to the season. And I remember just, looking on the NLL website and seeing them at the absolute top of the standings, thinking, this is it. This is our year. How great is this? And then, things have been a bit of a rough patch after that. You mentioned, about being a team that's kind of middle of the pack. You're not going to get a number 1 overall draft pick. You're not going to go to the final. I see Halifax as a little bit better than that middle of the pack, the kind of team that makes it in on a wild card, or they're either in one of the lower seeds and surprises people. So I'm still really optimistic about Halifax's chances this year, especially as well going forward too, because like I mentioned, it seems like they've got an eye on the short-term future as well as the long-term future. So yeah, it is unfortunate to start that way and not be a team like say Colorado that is really kind of riding that momentum, that they made a couple of moves and all of a sudden they look every bit as good as every team in the league. And maybe coming into the season it didn't seem that way, and now all of a sudden they're on a big win streak and they're beating the defending champions by a huge margin, right? Yeah, that's nice. It's really nice for fans to be sitting on that going, okay, well, we haven't lost in forever. We don't plan on losing in a long time. Yeah. But, this kind of stuff does build character as well. I'm sure the guys are in the locker room saying, we know we can do this. We came out at the beginning of the season, had 2 historic games, right? One with Warren Hill only letting 2 goals in, another one beating the defending champs. And then from there, like I said, it's been a bit of a rough patch, but I know that these guys, they're not ready to call it quits on the season. They know they've got a great team. They just need to start turning that into wins, right? So, and I think they can do it. They can start here against Buffalo, and then, like I said, they've got teams like there's a game against Calgary at the end of February. Calgary is one of the lowest ranked teams in the league, and even San Diego is not another one of the higher ranked teams. So they're coming into a patch here where we could see a number of wins and then be right back in a playoff spot.
Well, Jeremy, we appreciate the breakdowns, the previews, the optimism. Like Andrew said, you might be one of the most optimistic people about the Thunderbirds right now, but that might be for the better. We wish you the best on this vacation. Where are you going, if you mind me asking?
Heading to Mexico.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man,
it's February in Canada.
I'll shiver for you. Don't worry.
Yeah. But yes, I'm very optimistic about the Thunderbirds, and I make no qualms about that. I wear Nova Scotia right there on my chest, and I always want them to win. But I do think that we would miss the opportunity if we didn't give hats off to Liam McGrath, one of the only East Coast Nova Scotia NLL players in history. He got to play, in front of the home crowd. He plays for the Georgia Swarm, and just imagine that, right? Being a Georgia player and saying, we're going all the way to Halifax, and the guys in your team go, where's that? I've never been there. What's the weather like? And you go, it's my hometown, and I'm going to have the place rocking. They're going to be, they know how to party, right? So hats off to Liam McGrath. I really, really, think it's awesome to see a local boy make good like that and be playing in the NLL. So I can't wait to see him on the floor again in Halifax.
Amazing. Huge shout out to Liam McGrath.
Yeah, great shout out there. We always try and give credit to the guys around here, even if they're playing for the enemy. Even if they're playing for the enemy. All right, stay out of the sun.
Maybe someday that changes if we're lucky, right? And we get him on the Thunderbirds roster. But at least at this point, it's good to be able to see a local boy playing in the big leagues at home. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
Hey, whatever you do, man, make sure you put a little bit of sunscreen on. I'm not saying a lot, but a little bit, because I always talk a big game when I go down south, and then I end up being as red as Dayton's shirt. So we'll see if we're looking forward to that tan you come back with, and hopefully you come back with some good vibes for the Halifax Thunderbirds. Take it easy, man.
All right, you guys as well. Thanks a lot. All the best.
Love the optimism, and hopefully they can just keep it rolling. Look, this is a team that has the talent. They obviously made a coaching change, but they certainly have the ability. We talked a little bit about the clutch factor on Monday about this team and how huge would a win be against Buffalo. We'll talk about that again on the next episode, but it would be absolutely huge for them. So love the optimism from Jeremy, and then now he gets to go do a nice little trip down south. You got to love it.
Oh, dude, how big is that? It's I'm a little bit jealous now that he just said it's Mexico that he's going to. Never been, actually. So
I feel like that's the spot right now. Everybody's heading to Mexico. Right now. And honestly, I think with the way the weather is right now, it's probably a good time to do some traveling a little bit. 100%. And also, the Halifax teams aren't really doing too well, so he's getting out of town. Speaking of the Halifax teams, obviously everybody knows that's been following Halifax Sports Talk. We do our shows on Monday and Thursday. But the Halifax Mooseheads will have the odd game on Wednesdays or Thursdays. And, they're off a tough loss last night.
Oh, man, how much just sorrow and sadness runs out of that Halifax room. I don't know. It's just, no, it's not that bad. But I would have liked to see them grab 2 points last night. We talked last week about how big one of these wins would be, or how big this win would be going into these two games against Cape Breton this weekend. Obviously, they don't get that. And, now they just lose 2 points to a conference team. So Newfoundland moves themselves 2 points up, and Halifax stays right where they are, 47 points. Good enough for 7th, but, I mean, I would like them to move up a few points, a few spots in the standings, to get a better positioning for playoff time, because I feel like that would serve them the best. But they have these 2 games against Cape Breton to try and steal 4 points. So we'll see what they do this weekend, Andrew.
Well, I keep talking about this, but this team gets better as weekends go on. So I would love to find out what the odds were at Coolbet Canada for the game last night. But maybe this team is a bet on when the week goes on. But to start the week off, it's not too great. Look, the big thing I'm going to say from, I was able to catch some highlights, and I did actually check out Flow Hockey and look at the end of that game. It just seems like they're not doing a good enough job of suppressing chances. Like, they need to pretty much fall into low scoring games. I couldn't believe my ears when I heard this, but Matthew Tkachuk, back-to-back defending Stanley Cup champion, he said this after losing the Buffalo Sabres: they just have more skill than us. It's pretty clear. As a team altogether, individually, they have more than we do. We have to find a way to shut it down, which is crazy because they just won the Stanley Cup. For him to say that the Buffalo Sabres had more skill than the Florida Panthers. But I think when he's saying is a lot of it, hockey is about tactics. It's about how you're playing the game. And I think right now with this Halifax Mooseheads team, they cannot afford to get into 1st to 5, 1st to 6 wins. And a lot of it's discipline. You know how you and I have talked about it with the penalties, but it's almost like we need them to play a boring style of hockey, which a young team doesn't necessarily want to play. But I think that's the way they're going to have success. Because if you say every night 1st to 5 wins, I have a bad feeling about how that result's going to go for them.
Oh, 100%. If you're going into this game and you're thinking like you might have a chance to win after letting 5 goals in the back of your net, 4 goals in the back of your net, it's probably not going to turn out too well for you. Like you said, it's a young team. They might not like to play the style of game that they probably should as a younger team. probably start dumping pucks into the corners, maybe bumping and grinding a little bit, seeing what their veterans can do. Maybe stick McPherson, Rousseau up further up in the lineup once it gets closer to the end of the season, crunch time. Maybe see what they can do, see what the older boys can do and lead the team. Rousseau's been having himself quite the couple of weekends here. Couple good goals against Victoriaville that I pointed out in the weekend recap on Monday. But that's all you can kind of hope for, some people to step up and maybe show the younger players the right way to play. And that would be Quinn Kennedy, Sam Rousseau, Connor McPherson, all the older players in the lineup. And of course, Owen Brisson is going to have to be a brick wall going forward.
If there's a team that's reliant on veterans, it's this team, and I saw that Rousseau was actually on the Mooseheads podcast. I still haven't checked it out.
Both of them.
Yes, yeah. I did see that. So we'll have to, give that a listen. But this is a team that has to rely on the vets. But I'm going to give credit to Coach McKenzie and to the leadership core with this team. I don't have a stat to back this up, but this team has been pretty good when they're coming off don't want to use the word embarrassing, but a poor defensive performance. They've been a pretty good bounce back team. So you've got a big weekend coming up, rivalry weekend. Can we still call it that in this matchup? I think we can. So hopefully they can bring it and come back, and look forward to breaking it all down with you on Monday with what happens. But this Mooseheads team, you can't slide too much. You got to make some progress. And more importantly, I think just as far as the psychology of it goes, you have to be able to bounce back from an effort in which you gave up that many goals. So we're looking forward to it. Hey, look, Thunderbirds struggling right now. Mooseheads going through it. But the good news is, if you're going to struggle, at least struggle and be young. And then you got to bounce back when you do struggle. I think they're more than capable of doing that. But I don't have too much to say. I look forward to watching this weekend, and then we can kind of break down the weekend and overall try and get some opinions about this Halifax Mooseheads team. Maybe we'll try and outsource and get somebody on the show to hear what they have to think. But you and I are watching. We're rooting them on. We're doing what we can here, trying to break it down. But at the end of the day, we're hoping to see some momentum when it comes to them. And again, to recap the Halifax form stuff, we're going to try and get some more information on that. And it's that time of year, guys, for all of you Halifax Wanderers fans. We're getting ourselves set up. We're getting some interviews lined up, and we're going to try and make sure we can take care of the Halifax Wanderers in media stuff, just like you guys have been enjoying the Thunderbirds and the Moosehead stuff as well. So that's it for me, Dane, but I look forward to Monday, man.
Yeah, it should be a good weekend. It's a couple of games that the Mooseheads should be able to win, and the L'Italien brothers are going up against themselves once again. So Elliot and Romain for Cape Breton, Malik for Halifax, going head-to-head. We'll see which brothers come out on top.
Look forward to it. It's always a good one when those two teams go head-to-head, especially the Mooseheads coming in pretty motivated after their tough loss Wednesday night. They should be. That's for sure. All right, guys. Well, hey, look, NHL last night, Thursday night for a little while. Then all of a sudden the Olympics start next week for the men's and the women's. They get going already this weekend. So hope you guys can check out some of the local sports we've got. We've got Thunderbirds. We've got Mooseheads. We've got AUS hockey. We got all kinds of good stuff going on in the city over the next week.
Team Canada was actually supposed to face off in 5 minutes, but the norovirus has kind of just taken a wrath over the Finnish women's team. We hope they get better for their game on the 12th, because it's scheduled for a week from today, the same rink, because I believe there's only the one rink in Milan. I mean, there's one for like speed skating and stuff, but I saw a video of some speed skaters, and it sounded like they were skating on an ODR outside on a pond. So
so they have like a practice facility, and then they have the main facility for the games. So, but apparently it's kind of interesting because the players they all have their own room at the practice facility, but then when it's game day, they all have to bring their bags over to where the game day facility is.
Interesting.
So that's kind of interesting. But honestly, respect the coach for Finland just saying, hey, look, we didn't want to, affect any other players or things like that. So, all right, that will do it, guys. Hope you enjoyed the weekend that will be Halifax sports, and hopefully some of these Halifax-based teams can get the job done. I think tomorrow I'll be checking out some St. Mary's Huskies action taking on the UNB Reds. So hopefully that's a good time. Enjoy the weekend, guys. We'll see you next time right here on Halifax Sports Talk.